Welcome to Fierce Love, where we explore how to make your relationships fierce. And that's a good thing if you're wondering. And to help us with that exploration, joining me, I'm Gina London, is the expert in conversations, communications, leadership, and most importantly for us today, relationships. And she's also a best-selling author. And I'm so delighted to once again welcome Susan Scott. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Gina. It's great to be with you.
Oh, it's fantastic. Well, here's a big question for you, Susan. How are you? Wait, how are you really?
How am I really fighting allergy season here in Seattle? Looking after dogs that have allergies as well. Working on a novel, which is very exciting and intimidating to me, and just hanging out with you. So that's how I am. How are you?
I am really happy to be here with you. I'm happy to be exploring all the things that we're talking about on Fierce Love. And the question of how are we and how are we really is what we're going to explore today and with all of our listeners. I'm looking forward to that. And let's get right into it, because the difference between how are you, oh, I'm fine, and how are you really is a difference between caring and caring deeply and really getting into understanding the person and giving them that space, I think, to express how they really are. And so let's kick off this idea with the fundamental notion, of course, around Fierce Love is that we're building relationships, that you're helping couples understand and individuals understand how to strengthen their relationships. And yet you do spend a lot of time talking about divorce and the divorce rates. And so maybe let's launch on that and get into how we prevent those.
Yeah.
Or talk about the idea of divorce that you explore.
I talk about it in that one chapter because I don't really love to talk about divorce. Oh, I do talk about it at the very end of the book, but like what's after divorce. It's not the end of the world for you, but divorce.
And those of you who don't know, the book is also named Fierce Love. We want to make sure and shout that out, that Fierce Love, the podcast, is tied into Fierce Love, the concept, which is the title of Susan's latest book, Fierce Love.
Yeah, thank you, Gina. And it's all about the conversations that are so helpful to ensure that a relationship lasts, assuming that it has all the qualities that it should have. So, going back to divorce, the divorce rate in the United States is about 44%. That's fairly high. And second marriages do even worse. It appears that we did not learn what we needed to learn the first time around. But in some societies, I have to laugh because in some societies, divorce is no big deal. So in Australia's Aboriginal culture, a woman who wishes to get a divorce may instantly end her marriage simply by saying, I do, to another man, to a different person. In Saudi Arabia, husbands who fail to bring their wives coffee might be at the risk of divorce. I mean, those poor husbands must feel like they're walking on glass.
So I don't know if I'm going to be sympathetic to the husbands in Saudi Arabia versus the women, but let's keep going.
Well, and in Samoa, a woman has the right to divorce her husband if he forgets her birthday. I mean, it's just really interesting how people feel about divorce. I think in the U.S.
Yeah, because for example, real quickly, I'm American, as you can tell from my accent, but you and I know each other and have spent time together in person. But I live full time in Ireland. And very dominated by the Catholic Church. Divorce here wasn't even legal until 1997 or 98. I can't remember which. So there's still, like you said, there's a range of concepts and thoughts around and emotions around this notion of ending a relationship that was legally certified.
Yeah, I mean, no one commits to a relationship with the plan to leave it. At some point, where everybody's hoping this is a wonderful thing. I'm so in love with this person. We are so compatible, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, when I did my research, most divorces happen because of incompatibilities. And these are where people just feel that our incompatibilities become unacceptable, intolerable. We just can't handle it anymore. And then in Australia, the studies that they did said that the issues that contributed most to divorce were communication problems and loss of connection. And
Mm,
can I just say, I told you so in my book,
yeah.
all about connecting at a deeper level. And it's just too easy to think that, once we're committed to one another, no more real discovery is there for us to find about our partners or them with us, and we just sort of fall into a routine that become very boring. But I'll tell you something that happened to me years ago. I lived across the street from a couple that I just really loved, both of them, and spent a fair amount of time, especially with her. She was a gardener, I was a gardener. We just had a lot of fun talking about that and planting things together. And she was a very intelligent, exciting, energetic person. So one morning, I'm drinking my coffee and my phone rings, and it's the husband. He says, I hope you'll come over because I want to say goodbye to you because I'm leaving.
Whoa.
I looked out the window and there was a huge moving truck, and people were loading stuff into the moving truck. And I raced across the street. What the heck is happening? And basically, he said, I just can't take it anymore with Mary. She is spending way too much money. We're going to go flat broke. I have talked with her about it many times, and I just give up. And I said, but, and he said, no, I cannot have that conversation with her. I know what it would be like. It would be horrible. It would be messy. It would be loud. It would be, way over the top dramatic. And I'm leaving. And I asked him if he was having an affair. And he said, no. And of course, I discovered later that he was having an affair. And
Mm.
it was
More complicated than just the simple spending.
well, the thing is that it wasn't that he fell in love with this absolutely remarkable person. In fact, he described her in some rather unflattering terms, but he said, I just need a change. I want a different life. I want to start all over. And he was worried that Mary would be upset that he had taken a few house plants with him. He wanted to have something alive in his apartment. And of course, when she got home from her business trip.
Oh, so he was leaving while she was gone. Oh, this is a very intriguing story.
I know, she was out of town. She had no clue. And when she got home, she wasn't concerned about a few missing houseplants. She was concerned about the empty place where her husband.
Yeah, the missing husband.
Yes, of 30 something years had been. And it was just really, it was totally shocking to her. She really didn't have a clue. She did not see that happening at all. And so, that was, you've heard me talk about our lives, our relationships succeed or fail gradually, then suddenly, one conversation at a time, and that it's the missing conversations that are the most expensive. So these two people arrived at this horrific, suddenly, one failed, one missing conversation at a time. And so, I mean, how are we really is an important conversation. We need to stay in touch with one another. We need to check in with one another from time to time because we do change. People change and we forget to tell one another. And so we need to stay current. We want to, check in with one another and not fold our tents and sneak away in the night like my neighbor did. Instead, we need to build a campfire and sit in front of that metaphorical campfire and have the conversation. Because if you're in a joyful or a difficult place with your partner, you talk yourself there.
Mm. Or
And
you didn't, as you said, or
yes,
you
yes,
omitted, well, and you mentioned in this, and I think that's a really important point, because as you were describing the interaction you had with the husband as he was packing up and leaving, you said that he'd mentioned the spending, and there might have been other
yeah,
issues, of course,
yeah,
but
yeah.
from what you could tell, it sounds like he'd had a money conversation, but maybe he didn't have the "how are we really"
Well, he did the part
conversation.
that he
Where
left
do you
out.
think where do you think that conversation should go in, and who should initiate it? And how would, I know you've got great steps as to how to have that, and structure
Yeah.
to how to have that important conversation.
Yes, and that's in a chapter about how to confront when you've given feedback and nothing has changed. You know, how do you confront? And the thing that my neighbor left out of his attempts to talk with his wife about it was he never said, if nothing changes, this is what is likely to occur. He
Aha.
said, if nothing changes, I'm not sure that I want to stay in this relationship because I am very fearful that we'll end up no money at all. And so
Yeah.
that's not acceptable to me. And so if nothing changes, Mary, I may leave. And
Yeah.
he had never said anything like that to her. And I think that
Okay.
if he had, that would have gotten her attention and possibly she would have made the changes because she did. I mean, she did overspend. I watched her do it. And so that might have saved their marriage. So we really need to have the conversations with one another in which we're truly truthful. And the primary requirement to telling the truth is that we describe reality from where we sit without laying blame. And it's
Mm.
laying blame that is the magic part of it. Um, you know,
Can you weave those two in? Because I think that's really what I love about what you do when you help people, including myself, honestly, to identify the conversations that we should have. And then, not to say you to have this conversation, you give the building blocks, you give the potential
yeah,
phrases, and the positive words, and like you said, the guardrails around not with blame, and asking these questions and putting that together. How can we weave in the let's have the where are we and what might happen if you don't do how I'm
yeah,
feeling or what have
yeah,
you? How do we
yeah.
have that conversation and also withhold blame?
Great question. And I think what will help people the most is to picture their family, their relationship, even their work team. And this is one of the things we teach our corporate clients. Imagine your family as if it is a giant beach ball. And each member of your family, you and your partner, or if you're not, if you don't have children or anything, you and your partner, nobody else, you're standing on this big beach ball on different colored stripes on the beach ball. A beach ball it has stripes. It has yellow and green and red and blue and white usually. And so if I'm standing on the red stripe, I can't even see over the beach ball to the green stripe where you might be standing. So one of the ways that you can describe reality without laying blame is to
Yes.
say, here, I want to share with you what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing from where I sit. And, this is what I'm experiencing. For instance, in my neighbor's case, I'm experiencing very real, almost trauma about this money issue. I have worked so hard to support our family. And I see it all going away, going away, going away. And when I think about down the road for retirement, I don't think that will even be possible given the rate, that money is leaving this door. So I feel traumatized. I feel fearful. That's what I'm seeing from my vantage point in our marriage. What are you seeing when you look at our money and its flow out the door? What are you seeing? What are you noticing? Does anything about that concern you? So you have to ask the other person because they may be seeing something entirely different, not seeing anything at all, not taking this seriously. But I think when you say I am traumatized by this or whatever it is, I'm literally fearful for our future. That should get somebody's attention.
And then when you ask, and I love the open-ended question or the clean question that you ask, what are you seeing?
Yeah.
And really put it out there and then stop talking and before you jump in and answer for them. Maybe I think there's a lot of people that would have tendencies to ask the question and then continue speaking, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there other keys or steps to making this conversation be beneficial? Again, not laying blame, but really searching for answers. And then to your point that you said earlier about the poor departing plant-bearing husband of Mary,
Yeah.
when he was frustrated, and if but it sounds like he didn't, have said, if I don't see some steps or if we don't take this seriously, do we give time frames? I know in corporate world where you and I both coach leaders and organizations on how to better manage and work with their employees. When you have an annual review or a performance review, if it's ongoing, there's usually a development plan with milestones and dates set in that the manager and the employee agree on. Now, I know in a couple relationship, we don't have a manager and employee dynamic, but how do we start to mark any movement or change or progress or development around areas if they do agree? And of course they have to agree. How do we move that forward? Let's get the steps to the how are you really doing, and then how do we track progress so we can hopefully keep those marriages and those relationships building and growing?
Well, it would be slightly different given what the issue might be.
Right.
In the case of Mary and her husband, I would have coached him if he had allowed me to. I didn't see this coming. No, I mean, he never gave me any signals that, he was freaked out over this whole thing. But I would have coached him to say, okay, this is the issue. And by the way, let me just share one other thing. There is a word in Papua New Guinea that I absolutely love. The word is mokita, and it means that which everyone knows but no one speaks of. Judge the health of any community by the number of mokitas that exist within it. So if I've got a mokita in my marriage, we both know this is an issue, but we've stopped talking about it. We're not talking about our the dismal state of our sex life. We're not talking about our finances. We're not talking about our conflicting views about how to deal with our children, some of their issues. We're not, what is it that we both know is there, but we're not talking about? And the what we're not talking about may be killing us. It literally may be doing the relationship in, because if a problem exists, it exists whether we talk about it or not. So we really need to talk about it. So here are some things that I would suggest. One is, we really need to master the courage to interrogate reality. My first book, Fierce Conversations, begins with the sentence, "No plan survives its collision with reality." And reality has an irritating habit of changing, which can significantly mess with our plans for how things were going to go. And this is also true in a marriage. The reality that we understood or thought we understood when we first came together may have shifted. And that's why, even in a company, let's say you say, okay, here are our goals for the year and here's our plan. You need to get together about at least once a quarter and say, what has changed since the last time we met? And, does this plan still make sense? Well, there's something similar in a marriage. So we need to share any changing realities that may be going on for ourselves and inquire of our partner what's going on. Do you know how your partner feels about your relationship? And while you might not like reality, you can't successfully argue with it. Reality always wins, whether it's a spouse's changing needs or your own emotional or physical well-being. So we need to be willing to interrogate reality. And one of the keys there without laying blame, but also drop the word but. So,
Okay.
don't say, I love you, but really, instead it was, I love you. And one of the things that's concerning, replace but with and. Just try that for a day with everybody, not just with your partner. Just lose that word, because the minute you say, but, the person feels, okay, the other shoe's going to drop here and there's something really going on. But when you say whatever you're saying, and that just allows the conversation to continue to flow. So
and it links those, and it, sorry to cut across you, but sorry to cut across you. And I wanted to add that, see, I'm trying, that it links the two thoughts, the positive thought with the potential constructive feedback, or when we get into a different tonation, it links them together so it doesn't negate the first one by going to the second one. So if you say, I love you, but people forgot you said I love you, but if you say I love you and it links them together in a more positive way, I really like that as a strategy to, again, try to be more caring, try to have this be a positive, enriching the relationship, which is another one of your tenets. Conversation. Yes, I like that so much. What a simple but powerful, what a simple and powerful tool.
And it takes
not easy. It's going to take some practice.
I don't think we realize how often we use the word but. I lost that word so long ago that I just never use it. Once in a very blue moon might I use the word when it really is appropriate, but hardly ever. So I need to be courageous. I need to understand that reality can shift. Mine, yours, anybody else in our family, in our close circle. What is your current reality? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you hoping for? What's frustrating you, etc. Second, the definition of a fierce conversation is one in which we come out from behind ourselves and make it real. So I really need to be real. And I think we have to just remove the mask of perfect spouse, happy family, take a deep breath and show up honestly. What are our real issues? Name them, speak toward them with firmness, with concentration. No one has to change. But in my world, everyone has to have the conversation. And when the conversation is real, the change often occurs before the conversation has even ended. We respond to those who are straightforward with us, who disclose what they're really thinking and feeling. We truly do. So shall I continue with a few more tips?
Yes, okay. We've got interrogate reality. We've got come out from behind yourself to make it real. We've got understand that realities shift. Use and, not but. Keep going. I'm loving it.
Okay. So another one is to be here, prepared to be nowhere else. In other words, be here in this moment, in this conversation with your partner or the person you're dating or whatever, prepared to be nowhere else.
And before you go on to that one, I want to interrogate the reality of that concept, because I find that in reality a challenge. Kids are going to school, football practice is happening, we got to run to a meeting, we got to get up early to go to the gym. And when do we carve out that be here time? Every week, every Friday? Do we make it a destination programming like Netflix? We can't have an aside conversation because it won't be the be here. And I find that sometimes waiting for that perfect time becomes no time.
No, you don't do that. You don't worry about carving out a particular time to do that. It's just a way of being. It's a way of being all the time. And if someone is saying something to me and I am totally distracted, I'll say, hang on, my mind is really muddled right now. I'm thinking about all these other things. I want to hear what you have to say. Let me, give me a moment, or can we talk about this in a bit? I need to handle this right now. And people will understand that. And sometimes I have said to someone, who I'm talking to this person, with this person, and I can tell they're not they're not present. And sometimes I'll say, okay, where did you go? Where have you gone? You're not here. Can you come back for a moment? And I mean, they look at me like, oh, you noticed that? And they're a little embarrassed, and they don't even want to admit it. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about this at all. I was thinking about what I want to have for dinner. I was thinking about, whatever. And so being here prepared to be nowhere else is, I mean, it's such a gift. The purity of our attention, when we give that to anyone in our lives, our partner, our children, coworkers, our customers, whatever, the purity of our attention, they feel it. It is a different experience than the distracted person who might even be looking straight at you, and they're not there. It. I mean, we just can feel that. So, pay attention. And the rest falls into place. I think it just, what's happening? Neil?
The call just dropped, but the recording should pick up. So maybe what we could do is go back just a couple sentences and continue it, and then we can edit those in.
Yeah. So I think it can all be summed up in this way: pay attention. And the rest falls into place. Unplug your phone, turn off the television, allow some time, focus not only on being clear yourself, but on understanding your partner. Even saying, say more about that. I mean, that phrase right there, Gina, is the one I use more than anything else. Say more about that. You've just said whatever. Say more about that. Keep talking. What else? That then a person knows you are really listening to me. You really care about what I'm trying to say. And so that's another one. So, be here, prepared to be nowhere else. And I'm not suggesting this isn't a long conversation. It's just in the moment. It might be what feels like just a brief passing moment. But there's an opportunity to connect with your eyes, to connect with a smile, to connect with a nod, to connect with a got it, whatever it is. So that's a tip. Another one is to take responsibility for your emotional wake. There is no trivial comment. You cannot take back hurtful words delivered carelessly. If you say something, it's out there. It's not coming back. And
I meant that as a joke. Too late.
Yeah, no, Or even say, oh, sorry, it's too late. It's out there. So you want your conversation, you want your wake like a boat, it leaves a wake.
I can picture the scene of the boat, and behind it there's the water. I used to water ski when I lived in Indiana, and the idea of going over the wake when you're right behind the boat can be scary because it's real and it's bumpy, and that's a great imagery, because when we do something careless, there's a ripple effect, and not just a ripple, sometimes a good old wake.
Yeah. So to ensure that your wake ends with an afterglow versus an aftermath or an aftertaste, again, do your best to describe reality without laying blame. Deliver your message, whatever it is, without a hurtful emotional wake, by speaking directly to the heart of the issue with some clarity and conviction and compassion. Because even if you're upset, I don't think most of us have partners who are deliberately trying to be hurtful to us. So we need to be understanding, somewhat forgiving, compassionate, and saying, okay, this is where I'm coming from, and I feel this, and I think this, and I hope for this, and so what's going on for you? So another one, this is very important. Let silence do the heavy lifting. And you notice I paused there.
And notice I let you pause.
Yes. So insight occurs in the space between words.
Wow.
When there is no space between words, especially the more emotionally loaded a topic is, the more silence is required. When you sit quietly with your partner, whatever is in the way, it might be anger, numbness, impatience, manipulation, rigidity, blame, ego, cruelty, ambition, insensitivity, pride, all those things may fall away when we sit quietly with someone. And in such attributes and emotions and behavior, they reveal themselves as unnecessary. I don't need to be all heated up about this. I don't need to be all upset. I don't need to be angry. I don't need to be accusatory. I just need to be. I need to breathe. I need to be real. I want to be real. I want to hear you. I'd like for you to hear me. And I want to extend a compelling invitation to you to join me in this conversation. It might be, I'd like to talk with you. Not ever, I need to talk to you, by the way. That's
Good point. See, again, words matter.
a
The
matter.
framing of these need some
Yeah.
proactive thought and thinking and preparation so that it doesn't become, like you said, an aftermath.
Right. So when you say, I want to talk with you, that is very different feeling than I need to talk to you. As soon as somebody says, I need to talk to you, most of us want to go, oh no, what's
Here
this?
it comes. Oh boy, what's the bad news?
Well, and one of my clients, one of my corporate clients, he described to me saying to his wife, who he loved very much, he said, I want to talk with you about current reality, mine and yours and ours. I am beginning to imagine a different life. I am beginning to desire some significant changes. Well, that was a stunner for her, totally got her attention. And they ended up having this fantastic conversation where she also said, you know what? I wouldn't mind some changes too. And they talked about, okay, let's, what are you thinking? What am I thinking? How would we make those changes? What might be possible? What might be more of a challenge? Where do we go from here? And then, have the conversation. My heart breaks when people say, oh, I just can't talk with him or her about that because they always get upset and blah, 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 blah. And I say, it's not, you can't point to them. I hate to say this to you, dear heart, but it's you. It's you. It's the way you describe reality. It's the way you ask questions. It's the way you disclose what you're really thinking and feeling. Is it, before you say anything, ask yourself, is it true? Is it kind? Does it need to be said?
Those are three, and I know you
Yeah.
drive this idea home in your various writings and your work with corporations. But boy, if there's one takeaway,
Yeah.
if you've got something that you're concerned about and you need to have the conversation, think and pause and prepare how you are going to have that conversation, what those words are. And oh my gosh, say that again for everyone, folks listening right now.
Yeah.
Take this on board.
Okay. Is it true? And let me just add there, a lot of times we make up stories about other people and we behave as if our stories are true. So is it, how do I know? Do I really know for sure that my partner is doing something or feeling a certain way? Do I really know that, or am I just imagining it? So is it true? I don't even know sometimes if it's true. Is it kind? Is what I'm going to say or ask, is it kind? And does it need to be said? Because it doesn't always need to be said. And that one has stopped me from saying quite a few things or asking a lot of things. This has occurred to me. It's popped up in my consciousness, but that does not mean now is the time for me to share it or ask it or whatever. So, I think if there is something that's on your mind when how are we really, and you want to put it out there, the flow would be, and this is all in the book, by the way, it gives
Yes, which is
all
great. And the workbook, you can work through it. And I think what's powerful too is that this is aimed at couples.
yeah,
Really, when you think about wouldn't it be great if you're working through it together? So
yeah.
you're not having to introduce the concept to someone else, and that you're in agreement that, hey, this is a great way to have a conversation. Let's explore and embrace this together. So keep going.
Well, so the flow might be something like this. I have been thinking about fill in the blank. Okay. I've been thinking about X. It is important to me because bullet, bullet, bullet. I mean, we need to say, it is important to me. And here are some of the options I've been considering. And if I had to make a decision or take action today without your input, this is what I choose. And I want to know, what am I missing? What are you thinking? What would you do differently? What are you observing? And just invite the person. And they might express surprise that you brought this up, but you know what? Most of the time they know you've been thinking about this. They know this has been going on. They know this has been sort of underground or under the surface of the lake. They know that, and now we're surfacing it, and they might be thinking, oh no, here we go. However, if the way you bring something up is love, in a loving way, a fierce way, a real way, a not blaming way, a compassionate way, a sincere invitation, to share what's going on for you around this topic, then it's a conversation. It isn't a histrionic, experience where there are going to be tears or raised voices or name calling or accusations or blaming or any of that. It's simply a conversation. And conversation, it comes from the Latin word conversare, and con in Spanish means with. So I'm with you, and versare, it's about sharing with one another what is really going on. It's disclosing what's really going on. So there are all kinds of questions that you and your partner can discuss, and you might not want to answer all of them at the same time, but in the book there are 14 questions in that chapter that could prompt a really neat conversation, because it isn't always about I'm concerned about, or I'm worried about, or I'm upset about. It's not that. It might be, what one experience do you most want to have in your life? Is there anything you've allowed to be in the way? I mean, what step could you take to move in that direction? How can I help? It might be, is there something you've always dreamed of doing that you haven't yet done, or that you might like to do? I mean, is there some activity that has always sort of interested you that now might be a really good fun time to try that out? And maybe I can do it with you, or at least support you in that. And even what's one thing I could do from where you sit to enrich our relationship? And you have to be careful when you ask these questions. Don't, like, one of the questions is, if we were guaranteed honest responses from each other to any 3 questions, what 3 questions would you ask me? So you got to be careful with that. Don't ask, what thing would you like me to change, unless you're prepared to hear, well, I'd like you to lose weight, or I wish you were more enthusiastic in bed, or whatever it might be. That's a good question. And there's value in knowing how your partner would answer it, even if you don't want to hear it, but you get to decide what you're up for. So, and don't ever ask, have you ever been attracted to anyone else since we've been together? We've all been attracted to others. I mean, that's, don't ask that. That's not the same as taking action on an attraction. So
exactly. And oh my gosh, we have had such a lively, wide-ranging, and really impactful conversation about conversations, about teaching people how to and when to, and what are the structure around how to really ask, how are we doing? To let the silence do the heavy lifting, to take ownership of our own emotional wake, to try to have fewer buts and more ands, to encourage and enrich our relationships, because we want to build and prolong lasting relationships that are loving. We don't want to become another statistic, no matter what country we're coming from in that divorce situation, if we can help it. And Susan Scott, once again, here on this episode of Fierce Love, I'm so grateful for your time and enthusiasm around how we can each learn step by step how to have more fierce, real conversations. So that's it for this particular episode. I'm Gina London here in Dublin, joined by, of course, the fantastic one and only Susan Scott in Seattle. And those of you who are listening to this podcast, please join in the conversation over on our Facebook page, the Fierce Love Facebook page, and share with us, how are you really feeling? What are things that you and your partner might be going through, and how are some of these conversations going? Have you tried the tips? Are you changing your mindset and your word choice and listening and really being present? We'd love to hear. And until next time, we look forward to our next Fierce Love conversation.